internet radio station on a beautiful Thursday evening. And this is Action First broadcast. We come your way every Thursday at 6 o'clock. And we try to bring in a special guest, someone who's doing a great job in our community. And first of all, let me just say hi to Dr. Wayne McCray. He's the sponsor of Action First broadcast, my brother, Dr. Wayne. But our special guest tonight is from the Director of Board of Alders, Brother Albert Lucas. How you doing, my brother? God bless you.
Well, thank you. God bless you as well. And I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
It's good to have you in the studio, my brother.
Well, thank you. Pleased to be here.
All right. Well, like I said, we try to bring in some prominent people that's being a blessing to our community, and you're one of those young men that's doing a great job. First of all, are you a New Haven native, born and raised in the city?
No, I was born in New York.
New York,
Queens, New York, all over Jamaica, Queens, Jamaica Hospital.
Okay.
Springfield Gardens, St. Albans, Hollis.
Okay.
Queens Village, all my home, all South Jamaica.
Like it's the boy from New York City.
Yeah, that's it. born and raised there, but I've been in New Haven longer than I've been anywhere else.
Okay.
Been here since 1980 something.
That's a long time. That's a long time. Well, welcome to New Haven.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, brother.
Now, what gave you the interest to get into politics, or what made you decide to be a politician or get into being an alderman or that?
Yeah. So I fortunately for me, like I tell the politicians, I don't do politics. I do government. I'm not a politician.
Not a politician.
I do support the local politicians. I'm the chief of staff for our board of alders. The director of legislative services is my official title. And so I've always had an urge to serve. That's been part of my core from the time that I was young. It's always been something that's brought me joy. And I would say that what really pushed me into making a career out of it were two seminal moments. One was in 1984, I had the opportunity to go out to San Francisco for the Democratic National Convention.
Okay.
And for those that haven't seen it, you should go watch some of the speeches from the 1984 Democratic National Convention. I was a young kid at the time, and Jesse Jackson was running. Mario Cuomo was running. They were trying to get him to run. And they gave some of the greatest speeches in the history of American speeches about what it means to provide service to our community. And so I was very influenced by my experiences there. I spent a lot of time when I was out there actually walking around San Francisco too, and seeing the disconnect between how all of the very well appointed and dressed up people that were going into the convention were walking by the people who were on the streets that were looking for help. And that to me cemented the idea that there needed to be a nexus, someone that could be a connection between those two groups, and started me on that path. The second one was a conversation I had with my father, who was had been in the military for a long time. Spent 15 years in the military. He did, and I thought I might follow him in that path. And he said, told me some stories about how black soldiers had been treated historically in the military, and especially when they got home. In battle, it's all about who knows what. Right. It's when they're not in battle that you see the poor treatment. So we talked a lot about that, and we talked about me potentially going in. And he was like, "No, generations before that did it, so you wouldn't have to." And I thought about it, and then I realized as I looked more and more at it and saw the U.S. government, especially sending people to places where there were lots of communities of color being invaded by U.S. forces. And the soldiers who look like us having to carry out missions that they were not necessarily invested in. And I realized at that point that my best effectiveness was being in the room where the decision was made about where we were going to send soldiers, not to be one of the soldiers.
There you go. So I remember speaking of that because the great Jim Brown just passed away about a week ago, right?
Yeah.
And he was one of the ones that started that forum for Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Him and Bill Russell, and at that time Lou Alcindor, Kareem, to defend Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
When he didn't want to go into the service on religious beliefs.
Right.
So I mean the same thing you're saying. Right. What your dad was saying.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I'll just throw a nice pitch in here. There's a great movie called Ali's Greatest Fight.
Okay.
And I was very excited to watch this movie because I was like, which fight is it going to be?
Right.
You know, which Ali Frazier fight? Which one is it? And it's his fight against the government about that. And it follows the Supreme Court process of how the decision was made. And initially, there was no possibility that they were going to come down on his side. But I won't spoil the movie for folk who haven't seen it. But the case is out there. We know how the case turned out. Initially, we only had one black Supreme Court justice, and the one we had was Thurgood Marshall, and he had an issue with black Muslims, as he would call them. So he recused himself immediately. So the one voice that people thought might be on Ali's side immediately wasn't even a part of the case. So it's a great story for people to watch to see when you stand for something and you take it all the way through, the impact it can have on all of America, not just on you individually.
No, then you brought us some history because you're right. Because at that time, Thurgood Marshall and him and Malcolm X, they didn't get along at all. Because he called the Nation of Islam a bunch of thugs. You know, that's what Thurgood Marshall called them. And to your point, Muhammad Ali was under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Right. So at that time, so the only voices he could have used were like the Jim Browns and others because
Sam Cooke.
Sam Cooke and all that. From a political standpoint, or from Thurgood Marshall, he wasn't going to defend him, right? Because he looked at them guys as a bunch of thugs. Wow.
If you see the movie, it's a great moment.
It's a great moment.
Just walk right out of it. He's like, I got nothing to do with this.
And I watched the movie of Thurgood Marshall as well. Good movie. Right, with Chadwick that played Thurgood Marshall. Real good.
Wow.
Yeah, it's heavy. Now, so your father had a big role in your decision making, the direction you wanted to go in. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents, very much so. I mean, I was very in tune with both my mom and my dad. I took a lot from them. I learned a lot from them. They both were the oldest in their family, so they kind of were not just.
That means a lot too.
Yeah, they weren't just, and they both had 7 siblings, so it's not like they were just the oldest because they were only children.
Right.
But they were parental figures even to their own siblings. So we got to see a lot of positive modeling about leadership and family and decision making.
Oh, we're speaking live with he's the director of the Board of Alders.
Officer of Legislative Services.
Legislative Services. All right. Brother Albert Lucas, he's live in the studio this evening. What actually does an alderman does?
So
what's the position?
Right. So that's a great question. The Board of Alders is the local legislative body. They're basically the Congress of the city. The mayor is the equivalent of the president of the city. So they're separate branches of government. The alders are the ones that make the laws in the city. The mayor and the department heads have to carry out whatever policies that the alders come up with. So they have a legislative role, and then they also have a constituent service role, meaning you got a tree that's falling on your car, you got a dog that's barking too loud. Those, they help intercede. They're intercessors, right, for your gospel audience, and for issues that you might be confronted in your neighborhood and in your daily life. And because they're local elected officials, they get called for everything from the barking dog to peace in Sudan. It's a little bit of everything. And our elected officials, our legislators, this is something that they're mission oriented to do. They don't get compensated except for a small stipend for this, so they have to have other careers related to this.
Right.
And
but it's something they enjoy doing.
It's something they enjoy doing.
Something they enjoy doing, but it's something that they feel led to do.
Yeah, and they're on call 24/7 for this, right? So if there's a fire in their neighborhood, they're there. A car accident, they're there.
In their neighborhood, right?
Yeah, a school bus stop that needs to be changed. That's who people call. So it's a little bit of everything every day.
And the mayor is the one that gotta look out for everything, basically.
Yeah, and they do too. Right? So they do too. So they have a responsibility for the whole city. Right. They are elected in their portion of the city, but their role is to be basically the board of directors for the whole city.
Okay, now since we're talking about that part, now what about in the city if there's a shooting? In the city, it could be in the Hill section or it could be in the Ville or let's say whatever part of the city.
Yep.
What roles do they play on trying to work with the police department or the solve the crime or to cut back on some of the crime.
Yeah, it's an interesting role for them because these are their neighbors, and so they feel this much more directly the impact of any negativity in their area. I mean, it's very personal for
They take
them.
it personal, right?
Very personal for them.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, it's a
W.J.R.G.
relative or friend of theirs that's
Yeah,
that it's happening to. So they're there. They have several
You wanna say something?
committees that they work on where they have a public safety committee. They meet with the police chief on a regular basis and try to come up with ways to come up with innovative solutions. Community policing, for example, that we have in New Haven, came about as a result of a conference that an alder went to back in the 90s and heard about this innovative concept of community policing and brought it back to New Haven.
Okay.
That alder happened to eventually become mayor, and her name was Tony.
Tony R. Okay.
So she brought that back, and we implemented it here in New Haven. So the role of the alders oftentimes is to look at things that are happening in other places that might be useful for us to address the issues that we have here.
Okay. All right. So I don't want to get into the mayors because
Yeah, you can call them later.
No, I don't want to get into all that. You gonna say something like that?
Yeah, I mean, this is good because, a lot of the alders, they're real active in the community and transparent and more helpful too.
Yeah.
That mediator that is needed, to bridge, even now where we have the smallest issues with a lot of speeding that's going on through certain streets. So they're the ones that implement the speed bumps in the road and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's a good thing. And even like you said, when you all talking about with the violence and things to that nature, we take it at heart because, though that's the leadership in the community. So we want to dispel those things. We don't, and they're really boisterous and they're helpful in those times. I see, me being a pastor, a leader, seeing some alders at funerals that they come out and support along with, the other leaders and doing walkthroughs in the community is too. That's very important, and that's helpful, showing that their presence. They're not just at the office or behind the desk. They're active in the community.
Yeah, no, they're in the streets and on the doors, as they like to say.
Mhm.
So they're very well in tune with what's going on in their individual neighborhoods and the issues that need to happen through a legislative process. They do have to work together. They have to collaborate. They have to do things by majority vote.
Okay.
So they do need to get a majority of their colleagues to actually agree to move something forward. But it's always in the best interest of the state.
Mhm.
Well, they say a lot of times about politicians and
Mhm.
you don't see them until it's time,
For
election time.
Right.
I mean, they say that, but in our case, no, you got to be out there.
Right.
You want to be a part
That's true.
of the community because you are the community.
That's it.
Yeah.
You are the community.
And one other thing I would like to just address, because some legislative laws, they have to change. And so that's where you have to really be keen to what's really actually happening
Right.
in the community.
Right.
And being able to hear the heart of the
Yes.
community.
Yes.
Right.
So, that's key too.
Yeah. And they're, like I said, they have their ear to the ground on those types of things. So
Mhm.
oftentimes in the role that I have, I'll run into people in the community who will have issues, and they'll stop me at a grocery store or on the street or at a restaurant, and they'll have a particular issue that they have, or they might even have a gripe with their particular elected official. And I remind them all the time that you sent them down there. All y'all that are watching. Oh, these people represent you.
Then you don't want to send it down there, right?
Yeah, my job is to help them represent you to their best ability. But you're the ones that sent them there, and you are welcome and encouraged to come and participate in the process. Too often, I feel like, and Dr. Green, you can appreciate this. I feel like a lot of the artists, the gospel artists, the actors who look out in the audience when they're doing their work and don't see any faces that reflect them.
That's right.
And I think to a certain extent, this is the engagement that is also needed in the same way in the civic space, where the people who are most affected by public policy need to come down to the places where the public policy is actually being put together.
That's right.
We have very large open spaces where we have these meetings, and too often these meetings are empty.
Right.
It's not just us, but period.
But we need to be a part of it.
But we're the ones that are most impacted. They say when certain communities get a cold, we get pneumonia, right? And so we need to make sure that we play the role to get in front of this and participate in the process.
That's right. That's right. Now, I got a question for you. What can we do as African Americans to help support small Black businesses or get involved in businesses? What would you say, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, the city is very intentional about that, and
they have programs too, right?
They do. We have a whole office dedicated to it, and I also think so. The word I would use is intentionality, right? Intentionality means really focusing on thinking about where you're going to spend your money. That's the first piece of this, which is it's not that hard anymore to locate a Black business that has a product that you wish to purchase. But you got to be intentional about it. Of course, those that have better marketing budgets, the Amazons of the world, or the people that pay for better placement at a grocery store, are going to be in front of your face much more prominently. So, but there's a Black product that's right next to the one that you're purchasing.
That's right.
And sometimes in the exact same store, in the exact same section, right? But you have to be, but they may not be at eye level because they don't have the marketing budget to pay for that type of placement. Exactly. So they might be on the bottom shelf. You got to be intentional about it. And the city is very intentional about providing support. As a matter of fact, next Tuesday, there's going to be next Wednesday, there's going to be a graduation for something called DNA of an Entrepreneur. It's a program that the city's Small Business Resource Center runs to train aspiring entrepreneurs on how to run a business. It's a multi-week program that gives them all the skills they need to do that. And when you finish, they have a nice graduation ceremony about it. We have a bunch of programs around the city where people can learn the initial skills that they need to run their businesses. It's one thing to have an idea, but there's a lot more to it on the back side of actually running your business, and you need some training for that. So come down to City Hall, and we'll make sure we set you up with it. There's actually, to Dr. McCrae's point, there's actually money that exists right now, right in our small business office, that we have to give away to businesses right now, and they're having a hard time getting people to come down and take advantage of this free money to help start their businesses. Yeah, I think we open at 9.
That's it.
Okay. Because mine's is radio, man.
That's it. And just what the doctor orders, right?
Doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter what educate people.
Doesn't matter what the business is. Come on down, man. We got this money. We trying so hard to get it out on the streets.
Okay. Wow. Now, another question: how can the community get more involved to help New Haven with this gun violence and violence in general? Because it happens in every community. What can we do as African Americans, in your opinion, to help control this violence?
Right. Well, again, we just talked about the entrepreneur, DNA of an entrepreneur. The DNA of the United States is one where violence has been used whenever we have a disagreement, historically, to settle the disagreement. Right. So you're talking about something that is inherently built in and baked in to the DNA of our country. And we have to, again, be intentional about trying to figure out how to solve problems without taking other people's lives.
Right.
And I think that is something that you just have to be very focused on doing, and it starts early on in life, having those conversations. I got to give the city of New Haven a lot of credit for this.
Me too.
We've been doing a lot of work on this, and a lot of it came out of the Harp administration and has been continued, where the focus was on there's a statistically significant small group of bad actors. And if you can identify those actors, the bad actors, and try to get in front of them and find out what their issues are and try to solve those peacefully, you will see an impact in the wider community.
Okay, praise God. All right, we're speaking live with our brother Albert Lucas. He's live in the studio And we are also on Facebook Live. So those who are viewing us on Facebook, have any comments, you can hit Dr. Wayne with any comments or give us a call at 475-227-2170. And I got just a few more questions for you. Have you ever considered running for mayor?
No.
Why
He
not?
should.
Why not?
He should.
Why not? You got the experience.
One of the most important things you need to understand in life is where your lane is.
Okay, stay in your lane, right? Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I was a pretty good track athlete in high school, and the coach came to me, and I was a middle distance runner and a sprinter, and he came to me and he wanted me to run 800 because I was pretty good at the 400, and we needed either another 400 or an 800 runner, and so he was like, I want you to run the 800, and I said to him, Coach, if they intended us to go around the track more than once, they would have made it longer. 400. So they intended us to go around one time, and they made it 400. So that's my expertise, right? So put your expertise in the best place where it can be the most useful for the most people.
Okay, so the answer is no. Yeah. No, he never considered running for mayor. I know it's a tough job, so I put anybody that's in office, doing
absolutely,
something.
Absolutely.
It's a tough job.
Absolutely.
But now, what is your stance on police brutality?
Well, end it, right? Like we don't. I mean, nobody. There's not. I don't even think there's a. I don't think there's anybody that's for police brutality, right?
Okay.
I think, but again, going back to what we talked about earlier, you have to understand that the DNA of our country is to solve problems with violence. Okay. And so it's what we see in media. It's what we hear in media. We're inundated with it. It's even the sports that we value. And so it's going to flow over into the other aspects of our lives.
Right.
And so the reality of it is, and again, we've been very, very, very fortunate in New Haven, relatively speaking, compared to other communities around this country.
Yeah.
But we like to say we don't want it. We want people comparing themselves to us, not the other way around, right? Okay. We want to be the best in terms of the positive nature of that. We don't want to have a case. We don't want to be in those situations. And that goes to training. It goes to training, and it goes back to community policing. It's one of the biggest advantages to
me, go back to them guns too, because just so you got a badge and you got a uniform, right, and you got the whole city,
right.
But still, the thing is that gun, because some people, I don't care. Some people, you can't give them a gun. I don't care. They go to all the training they want. Right. They can do all the, have all the meetings, but once they get confronted, all right, and to your point, that gun going to solve the problem, right? Because they got that power.
So, I mean, this is how we've handled it in New Haven. I'll tell you, tasers are relatively new, addition to what we call the tool kit, the tool belt in New Haven. For most of the police department's existence in New Haven, we didn't have tasers. And we had a year where we had several police-involved shootings. And we spent the next almost year trying to figure out what we could do to actually stop that from happening ever again in terms of, and nobody's perfect, and there's a lot of quick decisions that have to be made in a lot of situations. So we understand that from that perspective. But what could we do to give everybody the best opportunity to go home safe? Because that's what everybody wants, right. The officer and whoever's on the other side of the officer. And so we spent a year almost doing analysis as to what tools we could actually provide the police department. And they call it, the technical term, they call it the force continuum. Okay. What could we get them to use so that when a situation arises, they wouldn't go straight to the most lethal tool that was on their tool belt. And the reality was we had to give them another tool to put on their tool belt to use instead of that. And it worked. And it's been better. It's been better. It's the same issue that you potentially have with anything. You have to continuously do training. You got to continue training. You got to continue having the conversation.
Against us.
But we also have to have the community conversation too. I mean, I spent a lot of time talking to young Black males and trying to have them interact with officers and have conversations about what officers are looking for, what signs might trigger a certain response from an officer. What can we do to limit the possibility of us ending up in those situations?
Right.
And again, there's no perfect answer.
There's no
to this,
perfect
right?
answer.
No perfect answer to it. But more education on both sides. And what I say to them at the end of these sessions always is, what we have learned today is that if you treat everyone as if they were a member of your family, everyone's going home safe.
Yeah. But because it's funny, I was watching the show Cops on TV one night. I had to turn it off. Right. I mean, it was white cops, and it was confronting this white couple. Right. Right. It got real ugly.
Yes.
Right. The white guy
spit on the cop.
Spit on the cop. The girl was cursing the cop out. And,
yep.
I mean, doing everything they can. And I'm saying to myself, that was one of us. Please. I mean, the guy even spit on the cop.
Mm-hmm.
And did everything he could. And the cop was still trying to be nice to this person that didn't want to be nice to the police officer.
Right.
And I'm saying, I had to turn over. I said to myself, and my wife and I said, that's one of us. Forget it. Forget it. I mean, no. So that's the problem that we have.
But that's the training that you want to do, right? So instead of, and this is where we have to challenge ourselves to a certain extent, and call our police department then, in whatever community we're in, and say to them, I saw this. This is everybody left this situation. Nobody died tonight, right? And we want to be in situations where the same thing happens for us. That whenever there's an interaction on the street, everybody, the officer and everybody else involved, goes home safe, right? And so we have to use those opportunities as training opportunities to say, this is closer to what we expect for our treatment than a situation where we've almost gotten to the point where people are like, oh no, we accept the fact that we wouldn't be treated well. And at the end of the day, people rise to the expectations that are given to them. And so we have to hold our whole community, both sides. And the officers will tell you when they're not on the job, they're going through the same thing we're going through, right? That person you're talking about, whether they're white or black or whatever, could have just been an off-duty cop. Right. So they don't know who they're dealing with on a regular basis, which is why my message to them always is, just treat everybody like it's somebody you already know. When you treat people like you already know them, it's amazing how well people get treated.
Now, tell us about your family life. You married with kids?
No kids. I'm married now for 14 years.
14 years,
like that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but as I like to say, no kids with my birth certificate. My name on their birth certificate. I'm still waiting for the one that hit the lotto and stop by and give me my portion.
I got you.
Yeah.
Now, would you like to see more African Americans get more involved in elected office, or politics, whatever word? Would you want to see more of us involved?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, like I said, it's not just about being the name on the ballot. There's a lot of other ways to be involved. And we need to be more involved, because that's how you influence the decisions that are made, by actually showing up.
Okay.
And one of the only currency that you have as an actual voter or citizen is to actually show up. You got to show up, and that might mean for you, so you can get heard. And there is some responsibility that we have on our own part to participate in the actual process. And so I would love to see more of that. It would be great. And we have to understand that what's going on across the country, where they are trying to minimize our access to the ballot box, changing rules on a regular basis, changing polling places, giving out false information, are all an indicator of how powerful our involvement can be.
Right. Okay.
And so we need to actually really take advantage of that. There would have been no President Obama without us, right?
That's
there
right.
wouldn't have been a President Biden without us.
That's right. That's right.
And so
the voting is powerful.
Yeah, and so let's take advantage of that and participate in the process.
Okay, just a few more questions. We appreciate having you live on the show today. You're a blessing to all of us, and to every alder woman or alderman, we applaud you as well. Keep up the great work, what you do for our great city. Now, what advice has someone given you, especially growing up that helped make you the man that you become today?
That's a good
All right.
question. I mean, like I said, I spent a lot of time listening to my parents. I especially spent a lot of time listening and talking to other people. Very, quiet, the quiet kid in the corner, taking everything in, listening to what
There you
everybody's
go.
saying,
Be very
right?
observant.
And being observant and listening to what people say.
There you go.
I think probably one of the things that sticks out the most is the idea that their success is our success, right?
Okay.
So I've always taken joy in seeing our people succeed.
Okay.
It's the bigger the better, right?
Right.
And so I think that's it. Understanding that when someone else does well, that actually is going to be a blessing to you and your community as well. And so that has always driven me to participate in ways to actually help people blossom to their best self. Because I want to see people succeed to the highest level possible.
Achieve their goals.
Yeah.
All right, now a few more questions. What about bullying in our schools? That's something that's big in school. I mean, even when I graduated, it'd be 50 years.
Oh, congratulations.
73, I graduated.
Yeah.
We got our 50-year reunion. I graduated from Lee High School,
Yeah.
right, back in the day.
Back in the day.
Now, but even back then, it was bullying.
Sure.
Right? I can't imagine how it is today, especially with the schools today. I watched some of the movies, classic movies of principals and all that. But some of this bullying in school, what can we do as a community to try to help the ones that's being bullied on?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Not my area of expertise, so
Okay.
I'll defer that to the school people. But I will say this: what I've learned from them is it's not just in schools anymore. We had a little bit of an advantage that when this bell rang, you could kind of escape it.
Okay.
It was an opportunity for you to get away. For them, it's 24/7 because of social media.
Wow,
It's beyond the schools. They're and it's led to across the country a lot of mental health issues and even suicides. And so for folk that might be going through that, just know that it does get better and there are people to help you, right?
Okay.
As it relates to that, call somebody about it. So that's the real answer to the question is don't just take it.
No, you can't take it.
Don't just take it. But I get it, and let people know what's going on about it. With the downside of the technology now that every young person is walking around with, where they have access 24/7 to each other, is that those that do want to actually hurt other people emotionally have the opportunity to do it at any time of the day, any time of the night. And so parents have to really be in tune with what's going on with their young people. And when they notice a change, try to get in there and figure out what's going on. Be nosy, be involved. I think one of the things we hear about a lot is that there's a disconnect between the adults and the young people where adults aren't as involved as they were, say, back in 1973.
Back in our day, right?
Yeah, back in our day. That generation, the older generation that's still around, remembers when it was that everybody beat you, right?
Yes,
like you didn't just get beat by your parents when you did something wrong.
Right.
You got beat by anybody that knew your parents.
Somebody, right?
Yeah, and then not maybe just
village
didn't know your parents.
child.
Yeah. Not just the people that knew your parents, but also the people that heard what you did.
Right. You got bad kids too now. Yeah, some kids is bad. I mean, I'll tell my son that one day. Some kids is bad. Right? I mean, just face it. I mean, I
don't think there's. Yeah, I hear people engage in bad behavior, right? And part of that is about getting some sort of emotional feedback that they're looking for where they can't get it in other places. So if usually that means I'm acting out because of something else, right? And that's what we gotta get to, right? I can't give you one talking to and expect that every kid is gonna just stop doing their negative behavior,
right?
Because I said, wagged my finger at him and said, "Don't do that. That's bad."
Let me give you an example. Because we had another guy on the show one time, and we were talking about black fathers and parents and all that. And I have to say, coming up, I have my mother and father in the house, and I know some people didn't have their mother and father in the house, and the ones some who didn't turned out better than some of the ones that had both. And I gave him an illustration. You got your car running, right? running, the door unlocked.
Yes.
I could walk by that car.
Yes.
It could be in the wintertime, cold,
Yes.
not even thinking about your car. And I'm still going to the same place you go.
Yes.
I'll walk right by your car, not even thinking about stealing it.
Correct.
Right? And that's my choice. I could jump in it too.
Yep, you could.
Just drive off.
Right.
Now, I don't want you to drive away, but
Right.
another person's going to come along on the same street, see your car running.
His evil twin.
And jump in that car and drive off.
Right.
Right? It's the same situation.
Yes.
That person took that choice, made that choice
Yes.
to jump in that car, knew it wasn't his or hers, and jumped in that car and drove off.
Yes.
Right? And they might got a caught in Waterbury somewhere, but they made that decision.
Yes.
And they made that choice to jump in that car.
Correct.
Now, I'm looking at the behavior that you did, and I got to walk by that same car,
Right.
saw it running, the thought not even in there about stealing your car.
Right.
I mean, I might be going to the same place you're going to, cold, just as cold as you are,
Yes.
and I'm going to get there. That's what I'm saying, where some people make decisions, and some people just bad. They're just bad.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, we can agree to disagree on that. I think people we had this conversation, reminds me of a conversation that we used to have with the police department about they'd send out these messages about be on the lookout for suspicious person.
Okay.
And we had this conversation with them about I don't know what a suspicious person is. That sounds a little profiling-esque to me. What's a suspicious person? What you really want to be on the lookout for is somebody engaged in suspicious activity, right?
Yes.
And so when you talk about bad people, to me it's about the bad behavior, right? Because that kid tomorrow might be the person that helps the old lady across the street, right?
Right.
And so,
right.
so it's not that the kid is. I won't put it on the kid. It's whoever it is.
Okay, that's a whole different.
Right.
That's a whole different subject. We can have that one
Yeah.
one day too. Because anyway, like I said.
Yeah, but choices. I mean, what we're talking about is people make bad choices.
You make bad choices.
And I say to the young people all the time. I am so sorry that you guys have to live in a world now where every bad choice you make is on camera.
That's right.
You don't even get the chance to make a bad choice and not have an opportunity to it not be seen by hundreds of people.
Okay. Now, what is the one accomplishment you're the most proud of?
Okay. So I don't know about that. It's waking up, right? It's a blessing. I think. I think.
When you're a graduate of Yale, when I'm looking at your bio,
yeah.
Is that accomplishment? Everybody don't get a chance to, first of all, to get to Yale.
No, but we're doing a great job of talking about the history of Yale now and the Black alum and going back to the years. This year they finally gave Mr. Pennington, who was the first Black Yale grad. He was in the divinity school. They let him take classes, but because he was Black, they would never give him a degree. And he goes back to the 1800s, and a bunch of students at the divinity school, give them props, fought really, really, really hard to make sure that he was recognized. And finally, they issued him his degree this year. And so there's a whole another history about that aspect of it. But I think, to me, the ability to connect, my greatest accomplishment that I'm the most proud of is the ability to connect with young people.
Okay.
And so it's not one moment. It's just a skill that I've been blessed with since I was a young person. I always had younger people that I was working with I was coaching from the time I was 9.
Okay.
And so I've always been able to have that ability to connect with young people, and it's just a gift that the Lord has given me, and I'm happy about it.
Amen.
All right.
Praise God.
Well, that's it for me, Dr. Wayne. I want to thank Brother Albert Lucas, coming live to the studio.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
Yeah, just one before we wrap up, man. I knew it was going to be epic, man, and we have to have you back, man, because it's a lot.
Anytime.
I tell you, man, we really appreciate you, man, your wisdom, like I said, and your humility, because being a Yale grad, man, a lot of people, when they reach that plateau, they forget. But when the humility is still there, that's very powerful, and it surpasses your achievements. But one of the things I just want to highlight here, that I have it up there, and you just can't see it, but they can see it. when you gave Martin Luther King, Dr. King,
My stand up.
that's it. When you gave him the award, you know, and one of the things I want to touch on, because I remember when, you know, one of my mentors, Bishop Philpott, he had Dr. Martin Luther King, had him here back in the late 50s. And he received a humanitarian award from Yale. And what was that moment like when you were standing there with his son and you handed him the award, man? I just, you know, just
it was a great moment, man. It was a great moment.
Yeah.
He's a fraternity brother of ours, you know. So I'm an member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Shout out to the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But I mean, it was a great moment to be there. I mean, one of the things about growing up in New York is you end up you're never starstruck, you know, because you're on the subway with celebrities all the time. And so there's only been two people in my life that really had that I saw a community really change by their presence. One was Muhammad Ali. He was in New York, and all I saw was a bunch of New Yorkers walking in the opposite direction, and I never understood what was going on. And then I turned around and found out why they were all walking in the wrong way. And it was because Muhammad Ali was over there doing magic tricks and kissing babies. It just being, you know, that's what he did, just being himself. And the other one was when Nelson Mandela came to New York.
Wow.
And he was there for a few days. Spent a whole weekend there when he got out of his worldwide tour. We got to see him. We spent a lot of time when I was in college. We spent a lot of time on the anti-apartheid and diversity and the divestment movements to try to get companies in America that were doing business in South Africa to stop doing business until they let those guys go. Blacks could vote in South Africa. And he was very well aware of that, him and Bishop Tutu, and they all came back and to watch the magnetism that he had. So to the closest I was going to get to Dr. King, right, who I believe would have been the third one in that group, was his son and my fraternity brother. And so Dr. King's always been a hero of mine.
That's right.
Initially they force fed him on us as we were young people. John Kennedy, Jesus Christ, and Martin Luther King were hanging in the house. Those are the three pictures in the house. And so that was the Holy Trinity right there. But the closest I was going to get to Dr. King was his son, and so that moment I really felt like that was a culmination of a lot of what's in my DNA that comes from that family.
Praise God.
All
right, that's a wrap.
Well, listen.
Go ahead, Dr. Wayne.
Man, I want to thank you for being here with us on W.J.R.G. Internet radio station and Action First broadcast. And, you know, I know it's going to be epic.
There you go.
And, you know, keep on doing what you do for our city, man. And I'm like Dr. Jerry, man. You know, I'll vote for you to run for mayor.
I'll let y'all know if that's necessary. Right now, I just need y'all to vote. Right? Participate in the process. All these folks that are out there talking about my vote don't matter. Trust me. Your vote matters almost more than anything else that you have in this country. So please use it.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for taking Action First, because that's the name of the broadcast. So if you can say that with me, Action First.
More great gospel music on W.J.R.G.